And at first, with the introduction of no-fault divorce, for example, sociologists thought that this would actually be good for women and for children by getting them out of bad marriages. And that a woman doesn't need a man, a child doesn't need a father. All they need is love and enough economic support, which can be replaced through welfare, through charity, through women working through a variety of mechanisms, daycare for a child while the mother works. That was the argument 40, 30 years ago. And then about 20 years ago, sociologists actually admitted they got it wrong. They'd gotten it wrong. And so there was a famous cover story for The Atlantic magazine back in the mid-1990s. And as you know, The Atlantic isn't a conservative outlet. It's a left-leaning, but pretty middle of the road, but leans left, middle of the road publication. And the cover story was titled, Dan Quayle Was Right. Quayle had been criticized back when he was running as the elder Bush's running mate for vice president, for criticizing Murphy Brown for glamorizing single parenting. And Quayle said, look, if you're a Hollywood elite, you can make it work. But if you're an ordinary American with ordinary budgets and ordinary salaries where you can't afford a nanny and daycare and all the rest, it's actually really hard. The social scientists came back and were like, Quayle was right. People on this campus who were agnostic about the gay marriage question, on just the marriage question, said marriage matters because it unites both a mother and a father with that child. Let me give you some examples of how we might see some of those gender-differentiated parenting, since someone asked about that. If I told you it's Saturday morning and a 5-year-old boy is in the living room, he's wrestling with one of his parents, and this parent is teaching the boy that it's okay to put people in headlocks, but it's not okay to bite or to pull hair or to gouge out eyes. Which parent is most likely in the living room? Takes a couple of seconds, and then the nervous laughter suggests that you all know it's most likely to be the father. What the social scientists call this is rough and tumble play. And they say that dads have a proclivity to enjoy rough and tumble play with their children, particularly with their sons, because this is what men enjoy. This is what the fraternities on campus, this is what the male sports teams on campus, on average and for the most part, they're more inclined to horsing around and roughhousing. Now this is important though. So what the father does with this 5-year-old boy and saying headlocks are okay, but pulling hair and biting not okay, takes place 5 years later in the backyard when the father is tossing around a football with his son. Takes place 5 years after that when the father is helping his son put on a necktie for the first time to attend a dance, a high school dance. The father is helping his son develop into a man and helping his son channel distinctively masculine aggressions and interests into a constructive rather than a destructive way. Pocono's point isn't that it's metaphysically impossible for a mother to do this. It's just that given our biological incarnations, our reality of being male and female, fathers have a competitive advantage when it comes to raising their boys to be law-abiding, productive members of society that we call dads. Fathers then do something complementary for their daughters. Fathers tend to be the ones who are larger than mothers. Fathers tend to be the ones who are stronger than mothers. Fathers tend to be the ones that have deeper voices than mothers. Again, on average and for the most part. Fathers are also the ones who once were young men themselves. And again, on average and for the most part. So what this suggests is that fathers have a particular interest in what sort of boy or young man is dating their daughter. They're going to be more interested in that because they know what goes through the minds of a young man. And they're going to be better equipped to scare away the bad boyfriend, to put it in social scientist jargon. Don't take my word for this. Let me read you a quotation. Actually, before I read the quotation, let me just give you one general statistic. So girls who grow up without their fathers, more likely to start sexual activity at an earlier age, more likely to be pregnant before marriage, more likely to have an abortion, more likely to be a single mother. One of the things that the father, on average and for the most part, tends to do for his daughter is help her navigate into being a woman and protecting her from some of the complications of sexuality. Fathers for their sons, a son who grows up without a father, more likely to commit crime, less likely to graduate from high school, more likely to be unemployed, more likely to be in jail. The father helps his son channel distinctively masculine tendencies in a constructive rather than destructive way. All right, now for the quote. Because don't just take my word for this. I'm going to read you a quote and I'm going to ask you who said. We know the statistics. Children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They are more likely to have behavioral problems or run away from home or become teenage parents themselves. And the foundations of our community are weaker because of it. Which right-wing nut job said that? Is that Jerry Falwell? Is that James Dobson? Is that Robbie George? Who's the speaker? Any guesses? President Obama. Now, why does Obama say this? And he says this while he's president in a commencement address that he gave at a historically black college. And this is what he said to the graduating class. It was at Morehouse College. He says, quote, "I've tried to be for Michelle and my girls what my father was not for my mother and me. I want to break that cycle." End quote. So there are 2 things to say here. First, the reason I kept saying on average and for the most part is that social science and public policy aren't kind of like physical laws like you would get in your physics class. These aren't kind of absolute Kantian rules in a philosophical sense. They're not necessary laws that you would get in physics. President Obama is obviously flourishing. He reached the peak of his profession. He's elected president of the United States. And so you can beat the odds. So that's the first thing to say. Being raised outside of an intact biological mother-father family doesn't somehow doom you to be a failure. But the second thing to say is that the odds are what they are. He beat the odds. The reason that he was speaking to that graduating class and saying that he's trying to break that cycle for his wife and for his girls, and he's encouraging these graduating seniors to try to break that cycle for their girlfriends, their future wives, their future children, is precisely because he knows most people don't beat the odds. That's why the odds are what they are. And so he knows that in terms of heartbreak versus flourishing, whether or not you grow up knowing your married mother and father sets you on a trajectory. And he'd like that trajectory being one of flourishing. This then, to finish up this second section, explains why government's in the marriage business. It's not because it's a sucker for romance. The state's not in the marriage business because it cares about the butterflies that you get in your stomach when you fall in love, because it wants to regulate your sex life. If marriage was just about consenting adult romance and sex, had no connection to any other larger civic project, we would get the government out of our bedrooms. We wouldn't have the state regulating our love life. We would treat marriage just like we treat friendship. You're free to have as many or as few friends as you want. You're free to have them be temporary friends, just a freshman roommate friendship you can be cordial with until the end of the year, or you can have lifelong friendship, you can have group friendship, or you can have exclusive friendships. The state wouldn't take an interest. But the state's interest in marriage isn't because it's a sucker for romance, it's because it cares about the type of union that has the capacity to create new life. And it cares about channeling that union in a permanent, exclusive, and monogamous way. Because when that doesn't happen, that's when we see the creation of fatherless children and fragmented families and all of the social costs that President Obama helpfully documented for us. All right, so let me move to the third and final part of the talk this afternoon, and then we'll get to your questions. So what are the consequences of the court redefining marriage? I opened by saying the legal redefinition of marriage wasn't the cause of the breakdown of marriage. It itself was a consequence of the breakdown of marriage. After 50 years of straight people making a mess of the family, not living out monogamy or exclusivity or permanency, judges said, look, this sexual complementarity thing doesn't matter either. What will now happen? I think we can see this consequence actually become an accelerant. It will accelerate many of these trends. So here's the first trend that it will accelerate. President Obama says he wants to break the cycle of fatherless children. How do we as a society teach that fathers are essential when marriage has been redefined to teach that fathers are optional? It'll be a much harder time for a culture to say a child deserves both a mother and a father when that viewpoint is now both legally and culturally one step away from being hate speech. And you can even see it in some of the reactions this afternoon. When I mentioned that mothers and fathers are different, and I quote a social scientist to that effect, that's when I'm interrupted. Right? Already even saying that idea raises suspicions. And if that's what's taking place here at Princeton, what larger message is being sent to society as a whole? This simply continues an evolution of marriage in which it's not primarily about what type of an environment is best for children, what do adults owe to children, what duties do we have to our progeny. It makes it more about the consenting adults themselves. It makes it about the rights and the interests of the adults involved, and less about the needs or the rights of the children involved. Historically, marriage was about both. It was about a horizontal relationship, the love between husband and wife, but then it was also a vertical relationship, a generative relationship that created the next generation. That's why these words have the same roots. And so marriage was simultaneously a union that would unite a man and a woman in a loving embrace as husband and wife, then create the next generation, and then would say that you're here for the long haul. You have duties to those children as their mother and their father. The redefinition of marriage wipes out that vertical component. It makes it exclusively about the consenting adult romance and the caregiving that comes along with that, for as long as the love may last. And again, that's not something that gay activists created, that's something that came out of the 60s and the 70s. It's behind no fault, of course, with the word. One way of thinking about this is that law shapes culture, culture shapes beliefs, and then beliefs shape actions. One reason why the